It was raining that night, the kind of Berlin rain that falls with a white noise persistence, soaking straight through coats and confidence. I stood outside the squat Whittle Gallery in Kreuzberg, with numb fingers and laces untied, watching the glass-pane door snap shut behind me. Inside, white walls shone and familiar laughter rolled between the wine glasses. I kept my chin high, though my cheeks stung. Vade called my pitch naive. The curator brushing off my story about exiles, city greed, and the broken bones under Berlin's rebuilt foundations. He smiled kindly but with an edge, as if he pitied what he saw as my seasonal episode. Journalism as art or art as journalism, he didn't care. It was not compelling, he said. No one wanted more bad news. I tried not to think of my family back in Steglitz as I stepped onto the curb. My mother always asked, why not something real? Lawyer, teacher, even an accountant like Daniel. My sister would snort, pretending to be joking, asking if I planned to make a living with footnotes from grimy squats. On nights like these, their voices stuck to me worse than the rain. I walked the 12 blocks home. Every street lamp cast long, wavering shadows. Headlights swept past and blurred the puddles. I hunched my shoulders into the wind and rehearsed my defenses. Maybe the story did need more grit. Maybe I'd try radio. Notes scattered across the pages, coded names, lists of addresses, overheard conversations, and a poem, something about stone and music, nothing worth keeping. I reread the rejection email from yet another editor. My heart pummeled against my ribcage with anger and persistent, ridiculous hope. I worked. There was no money, no recognition, just the magnetic pull of half-told stories, human trafficking at Gorlitzer Park, foreign students sleeping rough. Night cleaners with doctorates. I rode the U-Bahn all hours, scratched interviews in cafes, waited outside shelters in clove-heavy air. Family, when I saw them, stared as if I were an addict. At Christmas, Daniel raised his glass and asked if I'd finally cracked the case of the missing rent. They meant to tease, but the words dug deep. I hated them for it, then hated myself for minding. Years passed. Contracts came, brief, underpaid. But just enough to keep me in cheap coffee and tram fare. I learned to take notes without showing my hands shook, to smile at people who stared too long, to keep my voice gentle but unyielding. 3 years after that rainy night, the world was changing. Brexit riots, pandemic lockdowns, windows shuttered across Berlin. I watched my city gasping, old wounds reopened and papered over with hastily printed policies. I got lucky. No, I fought until luck looked like stubbornness. A source led to another. I spent nights photographing cold, quiet transactions in a Cottbusser Tor lobby and evenings in bureaucratic offices where men with tired eyes handed me folders wrapped in narrow elastic bands. The investigation was bigger than anything I dared before. Corruption high up, foreign workers squeezed by real estate deals, evictions on the sly, quietly signed off in midnight meetings. Bigger outlets started to notice. An editor at Der Tagesspiegel met me at a bakery in Prenzlauer Berg. Eyes sharp above her surgical mask. She didn't flirt. She didn't laugh at my 3 drafts gone to hell. It's nearly finished, I said, and was shocked to hear my own voice ring with steel. I handed over my files. Her nod was small, decisive. When the first story broke, my inbox filled. Not all friendly. But I knew, as I read hate mail and saw men in suits scramble for official statements, that I landed somewhere real. Names named, numbers published, the thin crust of propriety ripped open. My mother sent a clipped message, something between concern and awe. Colleagues sent cautious congratulations. My sister messaged me after months of silence. Her son, my nephew, had to present a news article in his school class and chose mine. I published a second story, this one more dangerous, implicating not just backdoor politicians, but leadership within the city itself. My byline ran in Spiegel, then Reuters. I ate cold bread at my little table, staring at the glowing screen, half terrified, half exhilarated. That was the beginning. There were interviews, panel talks, an award gathering dust on my shelves. I moved into a better flat. Sometimes I even remembered to lock the door when I left. But something stayed unfinished. The old wounds, the jokes at the family table, the gallery crowd's laughter slipping through glass. Those memories were sharp and unspent. The call came in May. Marco, the curator. His voice nervous, but just the rain came that evening, softer now, washing pollen from the cobbled street. I agreed to come, feeling something old and hard flicker to life inside me. The gallery was just as I remembered it. White walls, a brass bell on the door, expensive plants catching the light. But now, instead of pale portraits, acknowledgments of silence, there were blown-up photographs, my photographs, encased in glass. Images from Görlitzer Park and Kottbusser Tor, faces of workers. Apartment buildings sliced by construction, ledgers I'd scanned at dawn lying open for anyone to see. People clustered, murmuring, transfixed by interviews playing over hidden speakers. On one table, copies of my articles, now lauded, Nobel listed, sat in neat stacks. A slideshow scrolled through the news headlines. I resisted the urge to touch anything, hands clammy and heart pounding. Old acquaintances milled by the wine bar. Marco spotted me, his grin brittle. "We've never had such a turnout," he said, offering a handshake both eager and apologetic. "Really, your work, it changed how people see this city. Thank you for coming." I caught sight of my family then, gathered near the back. My mother's coat was newer than when I'd last seen her, hair silvered and done up neat. Beside her, my sister chewed her lip, eyes darting. Daniel, arms crossed, kept his expression carefully blank. My nephew hung close to my sister, head only just reaching her shoulder. There was quiet as I took my place at the lectern. I could see my reflection in the window, older, a little hunched still, but steadier. The gallery lights were warmer this time, soft instead of cold, and I filled my lungs with their honeyed air. "Thank you for coming," I began, willing myself not to fumble the pages at my fingertips. I used to stand in corners at readings like this, sure that I didn't belong. Some of you may remember when my pitches sounded, well, impossible. Laughter tentative but not mocking this time. People turned toward the back, and I saw my mother lower her eyes, lips pressed tight. I've been asked what made me chase these stories for so long. I could say stubbornness or curiosity or even hope, but honestly, it was loneliness and a refusal to let pain go unnoticed. Berlin hides its tragedies just as easily as its joys. I wanted to make them impossible to look away from. Sketched faces looked out from my photographs, tired, unblinking. I felt their presence like family. I think, somewhere along the way, I started to believe what people said about dreams and failure, I continued. It's easy to internalize skepticism, harder to believe that real stories matter. I have proof now. Here I paused, feeling the hush tighten, because the city's policies are different. Because people see the faces they once ignored. Because my own family, my voice snagged, but I pressed on. Because this community tried to convince me to stop, and I didn't. A titter passed through the room, a rawness thrummed beneath the surface. I finished the reading and answered questions, some challenging, some reverent. People wanted to know about risk, about fear. One woman pressed her hand into mine. Her brother, she explained, had lost a flat in exactly the scandal I'd exposed. "You wrote the truth," she whispered. "You brought him home." Marco approached with a bouquet of sunflowers, gaudy but sincere. Cameras flashed as I shook his hand, photos snapped for records and newspapers.